Okay, we'll start with this. On the heels of her big revenge win this past Saturday, Katie Taylor on proposed Serrano rematch, I'd be happy to do 12 threes with Amanda. Katie Taylor has not given up on the idea of a rematch with Amanda Serrano. She is also open to changing the stakes for their long-anticipated sequel. I'd be happy to do 12 threes with Amanda, Taylor claimed during a post-fight press conference following her revenge-fueled win over England's Chantel Cameron. I think 12 threes suits a boxer more than a fighter, so I'll be very, very happy to fight 12 threes.
Important details in association with what's next for Katie Taylor. The WBO have notified her that she has 10 days to decide whether or not she's staying at super lightweight or moving back down to lightweight, depending on where she goes.
That will determine which version of the WBO title goes vacant. If she's courting the idea of an Amanda Serrano rematch, she might move back down to lightweight, reign as undisputed champion there, at which point the WBO title she just won at 140, that's the one that will go vacant. And I don't know, maybe Chantel can see about picking it back up against former WBO champion Christina Linardatu.
Remember, we're talking about a scenario where Katie Taylor is fighting Amanda again and not Chantel in a rubber match. In a situation like that, Chantel can stay put, stay at 140, fight for the newly vacated WBO against former champion Christina Linardatu.
It's a great fight, a battle of the former super lightweight champions and a chance for both Chantel and Christina jointly to become champions again at 140 pounds. Chantel's coming off that loss to Katie, very tight loss, and Christina is coming off that controversial situation with Alicia Baumgartner.
Feels like because Alicia tested positive for a banned substance, the commission may so decide to rule the fight, the outcome of it, a no contest.
They might. In any event, Katie Taylor is already charting her next course, and both Chantel Cameron and Amanda Serrano remain viable options for her next fight. I really don't care. Either one is fine, to be honest, Taylor told promoters when she refused to make a choice between either lucrative option. I think it's wherever the best fights and biggest fights are. I can easily go back to 135, but it's wherever the best fights are. Taylor still holds the undisputed lightweight championship. Those belts were not at stake in either of her two fights versus Cameron, since both took place above the 135-pound limit.
What would Chantel Cameron have to do differently in a third fight with Katie Taylor? And what about Amanda? What would Amanda have to do to win the rematch? The advice for both is very similar.
As strange as this might sound, volume punching and pressure fighting is what worked for the both of them when they fought Katie Taylor. That's where they were having success and what they were having success with. And the alteration that they both need to make is a slight alteration. Instead of...
Katie still struggles with volume and she still struggles with pressure.
What can Chantel Cameron or Amanda Serrano, whichever one Katie ends up fighting again, what should they do differently, you ask? If I had to guess, I think they need to spend a little bit more time going to Katie Taylor's body. The head punches, she can take the head punches, that's proven. She can take the head punches just fine, but nobody, and I mean nobody, likes it to the body. Moreover, Katie's powers of recovery.
She's shown great powers of recovery when it comes to the head punches. We saw Amanda Serrano badly hurt her, badly rattle her. It took Katie a while to get her legs back. You don't recover from body shots, however. You don't recover from those quite as easily. Those have a lasting effect.
Katie's powers of recovery had allowed her to regain her equilibrium after Amanda Serrano badly hurt her. But if Amanda spends a little bit more time going to her body, Amanda or Chantel, whoever she ends up fighting, that might take Katie's legs away. And oftentimes, it's Katie's legs that get her out of trouble. It's Katie's legs that bail her out. You go to the body.
It'd be that much harder for Katie to get out of trouble. Just as well, mid-range to inside, instead of straight punches and hooks upstairs, shoot for the uppercuts. Chantel Cameron was having a lot of success in the pocket by shooting the upper.
You can slip the straight punches, roll and ride the hooks. You can do that, but the uppercut, it's got a different effect because you don't see it coming. Katie Taylor has a penchant for leaning forward when getting off those rapid-fire combinations, and she's open for an uppercut. That's why Chantel was having so much success with that particular punch in the phone booth. More of that in either a third Chantel Cameron fight or an Amanda Serrano rematch. That's what they need to change. That's what they need to tweak. What Katie needs to do.
She seems to have cracked the code for Chantel, but what about Amanda?
With Chantel, the trick was fighting more and moving less, whereas with Amanda, it's the opposite. Fight less and move more, bouncing in and out of range.
You heard what I said. With Chantel, Katie's rapid-fire combinations were flustering Chantel Cameron, but with Amanda,
it didn't have that same effect, and spending too much time in the phone booth with Amanda could end up getting Katie Taylor hurt again. So with Amanda, she's got to box a bit more, move a bit more.
I don't know who she's going to end up fighting. I don't know where she'll end up going. Will she stay at 140? Will she drop back down to 135?
I think, depending on which version of the WBO title she ends up vacating, that will tell us more about where she's going to go. And we'll get those answers in about 8 to 9 days. In men's super middleweight news, on the heels of his big win this past weekend, David Benavidez says that he was expecting Andrade to be a tougher opponent when perception doesn't meet reality. Not exactly.
I went with David to win a points decision.
But it only took David 6 rounds to get rid of a fighter that was universally respected, at least according to the author of this article. As David Benavidez reflects on how the night unfolded, he can't help but notice that he barely broke a sweat. Honestly, he wasn't as tough as I thought he was gonna be, Benavidez told ES News. In no way was Benavidez attempting to come across as disingenuous or flippant towards his former opponent. Although he dominated for long stretches, he refused to kick Andrade while he was down. Being more resilient and dogmatic in his approach was expected.
Before the fight, I said it right here on the channel more than once, more than twice, more than thrice, that I think Demetrius might get off to a decent start, but he's gonna fade down the stretch like he has in the past, and at that point, David will take over.
When a points decision, the decent start that I was expecting really only lasted 2 rounds, and in 6, David was able to beat Demetrius into submission and get him out of there.
A perspective.
I expected better of Demetrius than what I saw on Saturday. Now, maybe it's because Demetrius never actually faced a champion at any of the weights that he campaigned. He never faced a champion at 154, at 160, or 168. I mean, maybe it's because Demetrius Andrade spent a long time avoiding a lot of solid fights that would have got him ready for this one.
David Benavidez stated, "I think I just prepared myself to a different level. I think I'm just entering my prime."
I don't doubt that he is, and that has its role to play, but just as well, Demetrius Andrade's quality of competition leading up to this point, that also has its role to play, that he never fought any of the solid fighters, the good fighters, the really good ones at 154 or 160. Most of his supporters spend time talking about the 1 or 2 fighters that he didn't fight, the Canelo, the Golovkin, but what about all the fighters that he skipped out on, all the fights and all the fighters that he circumvented from 154 up to 160 all the way up to 168?
He didn't want to fight Jermel Charlo. He didn't want to fight Erislandy Lara. Those are 2 guys that Canelo fought that Demetrius never fought.
At least in the build-up of this fight, Demetrius Andrade's fans, what few fans he has, they thought stuff like that doesn't matter, but it does. That he never fought Lara, he never fought Charlo, he never fought Korobov, he never fought Derevyanchenko, he never fought Jacobs, he never fought Yanibek, he bailed on Parker.
All his fans can do is moan about how a Canelo Alvarez fight never materialized at junior middleweight or middleweight, as if Canelo Alvarez is the only fighter for him to fight at those weights. Moreover, as if Canelo Alvarez hasn't already been fighting most, if not all, of the solid fighters at those weights. At 154, he fought Lara, he fought Liam Smith, he fought Trout, then unbeaten Trout.
They get caught up playing Demetrius Andrade and other fighters like him, the world's smallest violin, so much and for so long they don't pay attention to what else is happening at these weights and what isn't happening, with Demetrius actually making excuses for it. Excuses for all the fights that he could have had that he didn't have for years.
But should've.
The way Demetrius's fans talk, you'd think that it were Canelo on easy street at all of these weights, at 154, at 160, and 168. That's why Demetrius was like a deer caught in the headlights the very first time he stepped up in class. And I don't want to hear about how David is so much bigger than he is when
Canelo is almost always the shorter, stumpier fighter in the ring. Almost always. He's at a height disadvantage and a reach disadvantage.
Demetrius didn't find himself in a situation this past Saturday that Canelo Alvarez hasn't been in any number of times on any number of occasions. The difference in height and length between Demetrius and David isn't even as dramatic as the difference between Canelo and Callum Smith or
Canelo and Caleb Plant.
What I'm getting at is that Demetrius Andrade's fans, more so than many others, like to criticize Canelo, but Canelo didn't get the crap beat out of him as soon as he arrived at 168 like Demetrius. And there's a reason for that.
Don't start up with the bit about rehydration clauses, rehydration weight clauses. Callum Smith himself said there were no rehydration clauses or weight stipulations in his fight with Canelo. There were none in the Callum Smith fight, the Billy Joe Saunders fight, or the Caleb Plant fight.
Zero. The real reason that Canelo Alvarez wasn't like a deer caught in the headlights as soon as he got to 168 like Demetrius, the real reason is that iron sharpens iron, and Canelo ain't the one that's been on easy street most of his career. That would be Demetrius, while many others here in America want to believe in the myth of the slick
American fighter that can walk through water without getting wet. Well, I'll tell you, that ain't Demetrius.
You say that he was fighting a naturally bigger man. How many times have we seen Canelo Alvarez do that? And he doesn't end up like Demetrius.
How many times have you seen Canelo Alvarez do that only to get criticized by Demetrius Andrade's fans of all people?
While he feasts on the Luke Keelers and Jason Quigleys of the world, avoiding the Yanni Beck Alimkhanalais and Sergey Derevyanchenko's of the world. This didn't happen by accident.
As soon as he stepped up, he got destroyed.
In the same division that Canelo unified in just 11 months. Bring on the Benavidez fight. I'm all for it.
Canelo ain't Demetrius Andrade, I'll tell you that.
Now, as it pertains to Callum Smith, who I mentioned earlier, and his endeavor to become a 2-division champion, he says, if I hurt Artur Beterbiev, I believe I can get rid of him. We hear a lot from David Benavidez about what he would do to Dimitri Bivol, what he's willing to do to Artur Beterbiev, though Callum, unlike David, is willing to put his skills to the test and his money where his mouth is. People make out like he's this beast. Part of him is 19 fights with 19 knockouts. He's got a great record and his achievements speak for themselves, but he has been hurt twice. He does get hit quite a bit. He's not an elusive, hard-to-hit fighter. I do see ways in which I believe I can win. If somebody's there for me to hit, I definitely believe I can hurt them. And when I've seen other fighters hurt them, I definitely believe I can do the same. I'm going over there with the full belief that if I catch him, I hurt him, and if I hurt him, I believe I can get rid of him. If he does, that will certainly be a victory that has aged well for Canelo Alvarez, and the chance for Matchroom to stage the long-awaited, long-anticipated, undisputed light heavyweight title fight in-house between two of their own guys, Callum Smith and Dimitri Bivol, who's supposed to be seeing action at least once before this year is out in December in that big Saudi show.
If Callum wins, they can do the fight in-house, which makes the situation less complicated. If he doesn't win and Artur gets him out of there the same way he gets everybody out of there, the silver lining is the Saudis want to do that fight between Artur and Dimitri. So the fans win either way.
Though what has my attention as Callum endeavors to become a 2-division champion is he doesn't spend anywhere near as much time talking and doing interviews as a Demetrius Andrade, who we just talked about, or a David Benavidez. He's not just sitting around on his hands telling you what he would do as a light heavyweight. He's already there. He's not just saying he believes he can beat Artur, one of the biggest punchers in the entire sport, not just light heavyweight. He's not just saying that he thinks he can beat him. He's putting him to the test, and for that,
these are the kind of fighters that Canelo Alvarez has been fighting.
I believe that American fight fans, more so than, say, Mexican fight fans or Argentinian fight fans. I believe that American fight fans, more so than British fight fans and European fight fans, have an affinity for big talk. Big talkers that are not necessarily big doers. Callum Smith isn't a guy who does a bunch of interviews every single week or every single month.
He's not a big talker like Demetrius, doesn't do as many interviews as David Benavidez. He's not regaling you with stories about what he would do at 175. He's already there, and he's already in the process of doing it. And for that, there are Americans out there that like to call these kinds of fighters Eurobums.
The ones who are actually willing to fight instead of just talking about it. How they look down on fighters like John Ryder and talk up fighters like Demetrius Andrade, when John Ryder, he's been in there with Callum Smith, he's been in there with Daniel Jacobs and Billy Joe Saunders.
These same fans like to talk down guys like Callum and talk up guys like David. When Callum's actually at 175, David, he's just talking about it.
Callum's actually about to fight Artur Beterbiev in a little over a month's time, whereas David's just talking about it instead of being about it.
I guess just having a silver tongue goes over better with the Real Housewives of Atlanta crowd instead of putting your money where your mouth is and your skills to the test, because they poo-poo all over fighters like John Ryder and Callum Smith all the time and talk up guys like Demetrius Andrade, who just got destroyed.
Embarrassment. Just seems like some American fight fans have more of an affinity for the big talkers and not the big doers, based on what fighters they naturally gravitate towards. Now, David is saying that if things don't work out with Canelo, he'll move up and pursue a fight with Dimitri and Artur, rather the winner of Artur Beterbiev versus Callum Smith. I don't actually believe him, but that's what he said.
He says a lot of things.
I don't expect him to follow through, and being honest with you, I don't even expect that Callum Smith is going to beat Artur Beterbiev, though credit to him for actually fighting him, for actually taking him on, not actually wasting the paying public's time. Real fighters fight, and that's what he's doing. He's going to fight against one of the most dangerous men anywhere at or around these weights.
As a fight fan, I appreciate stuff like that.